Hello guys, welcome to our second lesson on market structure. And on this lesson we'll be talking about trend reversals. Remember we said on the last session we have two rules that actually govern our trend, or that makes us to establish our trend. And we said whenever these rules are violated, the market is going to reverse. So we're going to talk about the trend reversals and how they occur, right? So we talked about waves, and we say this is an impulse corrective. I believe we all understood those concepts, right? Okay, there's something that I will actually want to talk about, what we call BMS, right? So whenever our market is breaking the previous low, if we are in a downtrend, whenever the market is breaking the previous low, this is a lower low. Whenever the market is breaking this lower low, we call this BMS, that is breaking market structure, right? So whenever price is breaking the previous lows in the downtrend, we call it break in market structure, right? Also, whenever the market is breaking the previous highs for an uptrend, we call that BMS, breaking market structure. Hope that is clear to everyone. Okay, so let's go to our trend, right? So if we are in a downtrend, we said for a downtrend we should always create new lows, right? These lower lows, right? And price should not break the previous, right? When you are getting in this impulse move, and when you're now in this corrective move from this point to that point, price should not break the previous the previous highs, right? That's what makes our downtrend to be intact, right? But the moment we begin to see our price breaking the previous highs, right? Breaking the previous high, this high was broken by price here, right? This is a sign of trend violation, and that's the first type of a reversal that we have in the forex market. We actually call it trend violation, whereby the market is breaking the rule, right? Is breaking one of the rules, right? Where it's breaking the previous highs, right? So this is trend violation. Right? If we are in an uptrend, right, price should not break the previous lows. They should be respected. But the moment we see our price coming lower than the previous lows, breaking these previous lows, then we have trend violation. Our trend rule is violated, and our trend will be changing to a downtrend. From the moment we see this low being broken, now we expect sell trades because our trend has changed, right? So after this break, we see there is a shift in BMS, right? When we were in the uptrend, our BMSs were happening outside of the wave like this, right? But the moment our trend is about to change, or the moment we break this low, right, we see that we now have a BMS, right? Our structure is now being broken inside the structure, and now our trend is reversing. So the same here, right? We're seeing our BMSs outside of the structure, but now the BMS is now happening inside the structure. So this results in what we call trend violation, right? It's a symbol type of a reversal structure, right? Most of the reversals that actually happen in the forex market, they will happen in this manner. So let's go to the chart and try to identify. This is the first type of a reversal. Let's go to the chart, try to identify a few examples for trend reversal. Okay, so I'm on gold. This is GBPUSD gold, right? I chose this very point for our case study. Okay, so let's look at what is actually happening here. I can actually take my price from this point. You can see that we had an impulse here. We got a corrective move, right? Then we got an impulse, right? We got an impulse here and a corrective move. Whenever we have some sideways movement, at times we call those corrective moves, right? So allow me to call this a corrective move right there, right? Then we had another impulse move, right? Then a corrective move, right? Then from there we had an impulse move, right? That created that high, right? But from this point, you can clearly see that our price went all the way down, right? Breaking this point. Look at this point. Price is breaking this point. After breaking this point, we say that our price is returning back to the structure. So this is a return to structure move. Then after that, we create another low, right? We create another low. After that low, corrective, and our waves, they have now changed and they're now moving to the downside, right? So if you can allow me to mark this point, right, this is the last low that price created before it started reversing, right? So I'll mark that point. Right. So the moment price comes to break this very point, remember we said we are now having a BMS inside of the structure. This becomes our BMS, right? Why? Because price is broken this low, right? So the moment we break this low, now we say we have a trend violation. The trend is violated the previous lows, the concept for the previous lows, right? Price was respecting these lows, but the moment it got to this very point, it broke this. So breaking this, we say that our trend is now changing. This is violation in trend, right? Because originally we were having our BMSs to this very side. The moment price breaks this very high on this point, we say this is a BMS, this is a BMS. But now our BMS is now shifting to the inside of the structure, and now we are now creating lower lows and lower highs, lower lows and lower highs. But previously we were creating higher highs and higher lows, higher highs, higher lows, higher highs and higher lows, right? So this is a sign of a reversal. So we don't necessarily sell the moment we see price breaking this low, no, right? We know that our price always retraces back to the structure. So we're going to break structure here, then price retraces back to that structure. Then to that structure, we'll discuss and we'll talk about how we take our entries when our price comes back to the structure, right, on the reversals, right? So at this level, these are the levels we call peak formations, right? If it is for a sell, we call it a peak formation high. If it is for a buy, we'll call it a peak formation low. So this is a peak formation high for a sell. So our sells will actually join into the trend at this very point because the downtrend will have been established here, right? So let's scroll a little bit to the right and try to identify other points we can use for our study. Okay, if we actually come at this very point, you can as well see that our price was giving us these higher highs and higher lows, higher highs and higher lows, higher highs and higher lows, and a higher high. But from this point, price came all the way down and it managed to break the previous low, right? After breaking this low, price started to create lower lows and lower highs, lower lows, lower highs, lower lows and lower highs, and the trend goes like that, right? So let's investigate where the trend actually changed. So the trend actually changed at this very point. The moment we see our price breaking the previous low, right? For an uptrend, we are saying the moment our price breaks the higher low, right? Okay, let's be patient. Okay, so my price is breaking this very higher low, right? So breaking this higher low is a sign for a reversal, right? So we don't sell there because we don't know if our price is going to reverse, but we are going to look for ourselves on this point, on this higher low. After this higher low, we're going to look for other sales on this higher low, then that higher low, and we'll join in the trend like that, right? So this is another example of a trend violation. This is how the market reverses. So we patiently wait for our price to break this low. After breaking this low, we are now sure that this is now a downtrend. Then we start selling from these points going down, right? Maybe let me look for another example here. Let's actually use this one, right? Remember our trend was actually going down from this point, so let's actually continue with it, right? So this was actually an impulse move, right? Allow me to take it to this point. Impulse, corrective, impulse move, right? When we see price coming here, we're expecting to take some sell trades. We're expecting to continuously go down with our trade, but unfortunately price came and broke this previous high. So breaking that higher low tells us that our trend is now reversing, right? So this is a violation of trend, violation of the previous high. After that, we wait for our price to retrace back to the structure that it is broken, right? Because we now have an inside BMS there. After that, this is a corrective move. Corrective move, impulse. Corrective, impulse. Corrective, impulse, right? So from this point, we stop taking our sell trade. Remember, we're taking sell trades from these higher lows. But the moment we break this, sorry, from this lower high, right? So the moment we break this lower high, the moment we break this lower high, now we know that we have a reversal, right? We know that we now have a reversal the moment we see this PMS, and we start taking buy trades from these higher lows, higher lows, higher lows. We are taking buy trades only. So this is trend violation. So now let's study the second type of a reversal that we have, right? All right. So the second type of a reversal that we have what we call a failure swing, right? It's almost the same with trend violation, but there is a slight difference. What we call a failure swing. So what we'll be having here, we'll be having our price creating lower lows, lower highs, lower lows, lower highs, like that, right? But what will happen is that our price will fail to break the previous low. Remember, on the rules, we say if we're in a downtrend, we should continuously form lower lows. But here, price is failing to create a lower low, right? It's failing to create a lower low, and it's breaking the previous high, right? So a failure swing is when our price violates the two trend or wave rules that we established in the previous lesson, right? So if you do manage to get that, you can always get back to the previous video, watch, then you come to this one so that you understand, right? So the moment our price violates the two rules, right, failing to create a new low whilst we're in a downtrend and breaking the previous high, then we know that it's a failure swing, right? So we failed to break the previous low, but we managed to break the previous high, right? So we wait for our price to break that, right? Then when the price comes back, when it's returning back to the structure, now we look for buy trades from this zone and that zone, right? So if we're in an uptrend, what our price is doing, right? Remember, a swing, right? Where we're saying failure swing, a swing is the same as an impulse, right? The other name that can be used for a swing is impulse. Impulse swing, they can be used interchangeably, right? So here we have a swing, corrective, swing, corrective, swing, corrective. Then this move should have been a swing move, going there to break the previous highs and creating a higher high. But price failed to break this previous high, right? And it retraced like that. So when it comes down to break the previous low now, right, it has failed to create a new swing, or it has failed to create a new impulse, right? And it's breaking the previous low, right? So violating the two rules brings about the failure swing. So the moment it breaks this previous low, giving us a BMS, right, we wait for our price to retrace back into the structure. So when price is retracing back into the structure, we now look for sell trades and we start selling into that market going down. So this is a failure swing, right? So we can go to the chart. Yeah, we are talking about the failure swing. So let's actually try to establish our waves here, right? Remember the rules for establishing waves, we have covered that, right? So from here, we have a corrective move, we got an impulse move, corrective, impulse, right? I'm not just drawing these things, I'm actually using the rules that I have shown you before, right? Then from this point, oh, sorry, I lost that, right? So from that point, we got another impulse, corrective. So from this point, what is it that we expect? We expect to see our price going to create a higher high. But price is failing to break this previous high. So that failure is the first sign for a reversal. That's the first sign for a reversal, right? So wait patiently, right? Remember, it's comprised of two things. We should fail to create a new high, right? Number one. Number two, we should break the previous low, being this one, right? So now our price is retracing and coming back. It didn't actually break here, right? But it came all the way to this point and broke that what? That low, right? So this is where we are breaking the previous low there. So after breaking that previous low there, what do we see? We wait for our price to return back to the structure. So after returning back to the structure, we are now creating a lower high at this very point, right? So from this lower high, we now take our sell trades, then we'll go down. So after this, we'll be creating a series of lower lows and lower highs. So from this point, if we can mark it so that we will actually start it a little bit clearer. Okay, right. So we can see that our price broke this low, this previous low. Price managed to break this low. Our price should have created a higher high, right? But it failed to do that. And it's coming down to break the previous low, right? So seeing that, we know that a reversal is now coming, right? So after seeing this, we expect to take sell trades from this zone. If I can actually zoom out, right? So we start taking our sell trades from that point, right? And if I can continue with that trend, you can see that our price actually created a lower low, lower high. We take other sell trades from those points. We are now in a what? We are now in a downtrend, right? So basically, this is how we establish our reversals. This is how you see your failure swing in the market, right? Let me scroll to the right and get to another point where we see a failure swing in action, right? Okay, this is GBPUSD again, right? So let's follow the waves that we actually have here. Let me actually start from this point, right? So this is an impulse, this is a corrective, right? This is an impulse, not ending here, all the way to these points, right? This is an impulse, then this is a corrective move. So after this corrective move, we expected our price to actually come down to create a new low, but our price is failing to create that new low. So failing to create that new low is the first sign for a reversal, right? Then we wait for our price to break this high. So the moment we see our price breaking that very high, we know that a reversal is now coming. So this is violation of trend. We failed to create a new low and we are breaking the previous high, right? So from this point, we return to structure. After returning to structure, we should break this one like that. And now we are going up in that uptrend, right? So this is trend violation. That's how it actually what? It actually occurs. So from here, we are now in the uptrend and we are going with that uptrend. So we start to take our buy trades from this point. This is our first zone for our buy trades. Then this is the second zone for our what? For our buy trades. Okay, let's look at GBPJPY and see what was actually happening here. Okay, so you can clearly see that we had a downtrend that was dominant here, right? We're creating these lower lows, lower highs, lower lows, lower highs like that, right? But the moment price came to this region, right, we got this push that managed to break this previous high. So breaking this previous high, we now have an inside BMS that we're getting there, right? So this is the first indication for our what? For our reversal, right? We'll be knowing that a trend violation might actually occur, right? Then we'll wait for our price to actually retrace back into our structure, right? So when price is returning back into our structure, we now look for our buy entries because this completes or this satisfies the condition of trend what? Trend violation, right? So from these zones, from these demand zones, we start looking for our what? For our buy trades. So we'll actually start taking our buy trades from this zone, right? You actually take buys from there. Right, if you take a buy trade from this zone, you actually wait for another what? For another BMS. The moment price breaks this high, we get a BMS, right? Then you wait for a corrective move back into the structure that will have broken, right? Back into that structure, right? In the region of those demand zones, we take other buy trades, then we'll rise like that, and we'll continue with the wave like that. So this is another example for trend violation, right? Then one more example for failure swing, right? So on the failure swings, we have what I actually call an ideal failure swing, that is a high probability setup, right? So what actually happens is, you can see here we actually had impulse and corrective moves for a bullish trend that was here, right? Then price go to this point, right? Like we were explaining before, right? The moment price creates a BMS here, right? This move failed to break this previous high. So failing to break that previous high, we say it's a failure swing, right? The moment price comes to break that BMS, it's now a complete failure swing, and you start looking for sell trades. So we'll actually start taking our sell trades from this point. We'll sell, and we'll sell from those other zones, right? But for it to be an ideal failure swing, right, we have to see our price breaking the strong demand zone, right, where our previous impulse move originated from, right? So the previous impulse move, that was a successful impulse move, originated from this zone, and we call that impulse move, right? So this impulse, this demand zone is also being broken at this very point, right? So the moment we see our price also breaking that, the moment we see our price breaking this previous low here, right, then I can say it's a what? It's an ideal failure swing, right? Because these strong lows have been broken, right? This is the kind of setup that I actually like, right? And I'll only start to take my sell trade from this zone, right? So I'll sell from that zone. Say from that zone, you can see all these BMSs that are actually happening. I'll take some sells from that zone. So all these are now waves, my impulse, corrective, impulse, corrective, impulse, corrective, and another impulse, right? So on my failure swing, I have this ideal swing setup, right? If you see price breaking this strong demand zone, then you know for good we are going down, and big impulse move will actually come from that, right? So thank you.